Apex to the right. Ooh, these are the oracles. These are hard to flip open. So this would be the posterior because the oracles, and there's no pulmonary trunk that we can see. So this would be our heart.
So this is the anterior?
This is the anterior because the oracles are back here.
Oh, okay.
There's another oracle. And the pulmonary trunk, and this is the...
that sulcus?
Yes, this is the sulcus. So, and then, I think that's all she wanted us to do, so do that, but...
And then we can stick our probes in the...
Ours is like ripped open and really stiff.
They're in the drawers.
Our artery is ripped in half. There we go. And that one should be able... This is a... Oh, here's one right here. This is a really bad squished up heart.
Poor heart. So that's the...
Because those things...
This is not going right far. This should be the left pulmonary... or left coronary artery. And this should be the right. But...
Wait. Isn't this the aorta because it goes into the left ventricle? That's when they crisscross? And then this is the pulmonary branch?
Yeah, you're right. I hate that I didn't get my book out before I started touching this. Are we supposed to wait for her to
No, it's fine.
get in?
Because Melissa can come by too.
Alright. I wish we were cutting them open today.
You wish? Is that what you said?
Yeah. So we can get a better view of the inside. So let's see. I want these to open more.
There's another probe just in case we need it.
This should be the other oracle here, but it's not. Oh, okay. There, now it's starting to flap up. It's just really stiff.
Poor heart.
There's a lot of fat on it. So the oracles, she said, are always on the posterior. They open up from the posterior. So this would be our anterior heart. Which the left is bigger than the right. So
yeah.
What else does she want us to know?
Okay, you're welcome.
You just wanted us to identify
Just be able to identify. So let me come around and Melissa's doing probably that side. So you definitely got
This
an
would
anterior
be,
view.
yes.
Yep. Because
we have our oracles
Very
that
good.
flap on the back.
no. Oh, so sorry. Sorry. This is anterior. Oh, sorry.
This is anterior?
Yeah, that's definitely anterior. Why?
Oh.
Well, and you had started with apex thinking, but now when the free edges of the oracles, folks, have to be on the anterior aspect.
Oh.
So yeah, because only then will. Because you're lifting up the free edge of that would be the, which oracle is that?
That's the left.
Left oracle, or some people say oracle of left atrium. That either way is fine.
And would this be the right? It's hard to...
No,
or is it
a
more...
little farther over. Little farther over.
this...
There it is. It's got a little fat around
okay.
it. There it is. There it is. And sometimes the
I
butcher,
see.
in getting these out of the cadaver, kind of slice it a bit. So some of your oracle is actually missing there. I'm just going to pull it this way so I don't drill it. Yeah, see, part of the auricle they slashed. They actually kind of cut it, so you don't have much of it. But that's the free edge. See how we can't separate it back here much. Yeah, but we can much more here. But this one is definitely totally still intact, and there's its free edge, that whole ruffled edge. Okay, and then that means this structure here is this just has, okay, so here's the pulmonary trunk is right there. Because see, and when we cut it open, but we can even feel, see how much thinner that is than this is real thick. This is left ventricle, because all of the apex is left ventricle. And see, there's the interventricular sulcus, which is the external manifestation of the interventricular septum. So we know, and technically when you draw a heart, we draw it as if it's just perfectly symmetrical. But most of the heart sits on the right ventricle. So most of the right ventricle is way around posterior here. The left ventricle hangs over the dome of the diaphragm, and so most of the left ventricle is what we see. But we draw it as if it's like this, so we can kind of do halvesies. But that's a schematic view only, for the sake of seeing it for being symmetrical, yet its own little individual. So, okay, so number one, apex down and to the left. Number two, free edges of the auricles are
I'm going to remember them now from dog ears.
Dog ears. That's exactly what they. That's exactly what they look like. They're even a little scalloped. And have you ever seen that like that? It's like a salvage edge of material. Dog's ears. The margins are so beautiful. They just come to an end, and yet the little fur, hangs down over it. So anyway, very, very perfect. And there's the pulmonary trunk. There's the most anterior of the two, because there's the aorta. In this case, we just happen to have a branch off the aorta. But see, if I put the probe in this way, I can tell I'm heading over here to, yeah, I can just feel it. I ended up right there. I'll let you kind of feel that we ended up on the left. Whereas if we put the probe in here, we end up on the right. And you can even kind of do this and say, oh yeah, there. And if that's the interventricular sulcus, the end of the right ventricle and the beginning of the left, we're on the right side of it. And then very last is the is this very salient, and there's usually a fair amount of fat because this is the first artery. There's the sulcus, and it's kind of hard to see, although it's really easier to see where there's not fat. And because these aren't injected, they're not either red or blue, but we can actually see the lumen of the vessel in there.
Oh.
Yeah, and usually what we're seeing is the vein rather than the artery. But and if we were to peel away this fat, we could actually, we could get at the fat, although it's encapsulated, so it's pretty hard to pull off. But you could pull it off and get at it. And then around posterior, now we're going to see that would be the left atrium, that would be the right atrium, and we can actually see into the right atrium a little bit because the butcher just kind of did that for us. And there's one of, I didn't talk about that because we didn't have time, but the different ways that the cardiac muscle tissue can configure itself. It's called trabeculae carnae. Yeah. And yet really what we want to do is we want to get into this coronary sinus right there, and so you can thread retrograde. And one of that metal probe with the little kind of bent hook works the best. There, you have to stay.
Oh, here.
So
I
right
don't know
here.
what she means.
So, folks, how many of you can find a superior and inferior vena cava? I'm just curious. There's your pulmonary trunk. There's your aorta.
Did you want to peel the fat and look, or no?
Huh?
Did you want to peel away some of the fat to see if we can see it? Or?
I think once we cut into it. Alright, I'm up.